Okay.
So good evening, everybody. Welcome to a public hearing on the Smart Schools Bond Act Preliminary Investment Plan. At this time, I would invite everyone to please rise for the pledge to the American flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation, indivisible, under God, for all justice. So again, I want to thank everybody for attending both in person and or virtual this pre-meeting prior to the board meeting. At this time, I will turn the meeting and the public hearing over to Dr. Andrea Tejedor, the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum, Instruction, and Technology. She'll go through a presentation. She'll read any questions that we've received heretofore from the community, and then take any questions from anybody in the board. Andrea?
Thank you, Dr. Shiboy. It's a pleasure to be here this morning and share the information about our phase 2 for the Smart School Bond Act. We actually had submitted the first phase a couple years ago, and we finished phase 1, and now we're ready to move on to phase 2. So I'm going to share a presentation with everyone and walk you through where we are with this today. This second phase will actually use all of the remaining funds that we have access to. So I'm going to share my screen and do it. Okay, you should see the presentation for the Smart Schools Bond Act Phase 2 Investment Plan as of today, June 10th, 2021. Can somebody just confirm that you see it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So, basic overview of the process. The Smart School Bond Act was passed in November of 2014. They allocated $2 billion of funding that was released. Our allocation is $848,982. There is no deadline to utilize the funds, but you do need to have an approved technology plan on record, and we do have an approved technology plan. Our previous technology plan was from 2018 to 2021. Typically, this would be a year where we would have to have a new plan submitted and approved, but that deadline was moved to 2022. So the purpose of the Smart School Bond Act is to finance educational technology and infrastructure, providing students access to the latest technology and connectivity needed to succeed and compete in a global economy. There are 4 areas where you could request funding: school connectivity, classroom technology, pre-kindergarten classrooms, and high-tech security features. There were also preconditions that had to be met before you could access the funds. 100 megabytes per second per 1,000 students. We were currently, this is outdated information, we were currently at 15. We now meet that requirement. And we meet all of the requirements and the preconditions. This was originally submitted in 2015. I think we prepared this application 2016. Things have changed greatly since that time, and we now meet or exceed all of the preconditions in order to access our funds. So our phase 1 request was to upgrade classroom learning technologies. Specifically, we used $296,000 almost to purchase interactive panels, historically called smart boards. Now we've instead purchased monitors. Essentially, they're interactive monitors or panels, and they are all mobile. They're all on carts, and we purchased them for the intermediate school and the high school. And every learning space during the pandemic was able to be equipped with a board because of the way that we purchased and the configuration that we purchased. Really, it saved us as we moved into our hybrid learning environments. That phase 1 was completed in August of I'm sorry, there's a mistake on here. It should be 2020 that was completed. So we just finished that upgrade. And now we're moving on to the second phase of the project to install enhanced communication and security systems, communication systems. So what we have decided to do, there's 3 areas that you can use the funding for: physical access controls, video surveillance, and emergency notification systems. We are allocating the remaining 65% of the funds that we are receiving, $553,040, toward.
How much was that again?
The second phase is $553,040.
Thank you.
Yep. And we are using those funds to upgrade the physical access controls. I'm just going to go to the next slide. For all of the doors in the building, both the interior doors to any space that needs to be accessed, and also all of our exterior doors, will be moving to wireless lock sets that can be accessed or opened based on the permissions that you have according to your swipe cards that you'll be assigned. So basically your school ID is used to control access to the spaces that you need access to. So the cost of the project is at $553,000, and that covers all of the wireless lock sets that we need for any type of door in all 3 buildings, and also the labor to install it. Here's our timeline. We did an initial approval of our preliminary Smart School Improvement Plan in February 2nd of 2017. We posted the plan. We had an initial plan and public hearing back at that time. This is the public hearing on the allocation of the remaining funds. And so phase 2 is today. The board will do a final approval of the plan on July 8th at the reorg meeting. And then the plan will be submitted to New York State Education Department on July 9th.
Andrea, can I just clarify?
Yes, please.
So the board will act on a proposal to approve the final plan at the business meeting after New York, right?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, just for anybody who's watching.
Semantics, yes.
Yes, it very much so, but yeah.
Thank you. No, thank you for the clarification. So in terms of our future planning, as we continue to maintain the infrastructure that we have in place, we will do the implementation timeline after approval. We will provide professional development or professional learning opportunities for any new technologies. It may require some quick professional learning in terms of using the swipe cards and the spaces that people have access to. We'll maintain the new systems and replacement schedule beyond Smart School Bond Act. So if anybody has any questions, they can continue to send them to smartschools@hffmcsd.org. Or if you have written feedback, this presentation is on the website now, as is the actual plan. I'm going to stop sharing. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? No questions.
Andrea, can I make a couple comments? That's all?
Absolutely.
So first off, I want to thank you for not only for this phase, but for phase 1, which, as you said, made it possible, working with Denise and the team, made it possible for us to pivot so well to our hybrid, as well as anybody did. Also want to thank you for working so closely with Denise and Tom before he departed on something that we've talked about for years, how to secure our facility in the event of an intruder. And, Sandy Hook and Parkland taught us a lot recently. And I think that this moves us far, far towards keeping our children and our faculty and staff more safe. So just really want to commend you for that foresight. So other districts I know bought Chromebooks, and that was a waste of permanent money for a temporary solution. So that's just my thoughts.
Yeah, I think we've been smart in terms of our use of the funds because we're not putting these monies towards what basically has become a consumable device. And so these were long-term investments. We anticipate that the boards will last 8 to 10 years, and that, you know, the door improvements for door access controls, I mean, that's definitely a long-term investment that we hope exceeds 10 years.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Andrew, that's what I was going to say. It seems like a money saver in the long run. Not having to make keys, you know, replacing locks and all that stuff, and not having to worry about keys floating around the community or wherever else because, you know, somebody didn't give it back. So I personally think the investment was great, and look forward to saving some money on that.
Yeah, thank you. So no other questions.
So hearing no other questions, first off, I'll thank Dr. Tato for a very thorough presentation. I thank everybody who's watching. Please stay tuned because this is the same link if you're watching remotely. But I will call the public hearing regarding the smart bond investment to a close. And at approximately 6 p.m., the board will open in a business meeting. So thank you.
Okay, so
Thank you.
Thank you.
anybody who's watching, we will be muting the live stream until the board returns at 6 o'clock. Okay. Have a good night, everyone.
Go ahead, Stefan. Good to go. Okay, Frank.
So thank you to the board. Welcome back to the community and anybody who's watching on the live stream. I would like to welcome Ms. Olga Anderson and Ed Nugent here. Olga and I have been in a lot of conversations over the past few weeks about a NYSERDA grant that is available. Olga wanted an opportunity to present briefly to the board. We did send a read ahead to the board, so you should have had the opportunity to just look at some of the details of that and develop any questions that you may have. But Olga, I'm going to turn it over to you if that's okay.
All right. Well, thanks so much, everybody. And thanks for letting Ed and me kind of talk to you a little bit about this. For those of you who don't know me, and I'm sure there are some who don't, my name is Olga Anderson. I live in Highland Falls, and I'm the chair of the Town of Highlands Citizens Environmental Advisory Committee. Ed Nugent, who is also here, is on our committee. He lives in Fort Montgomery, and he is a LEED certified passive home builder. So our committee, in case you're not aware of what we do, we focus primarily on the activities that are part of New York State's Clean Energy Communities and Climate Smart Communities programs. And there's other things that we do that we feel are important to have at a local level have an impact on our environment. So previously we did approach the school board about the possibility of rehabilitating the elementary school on Mountain Avenue specifically using passive building or zero energy construction techniques. Our thinking is that would not only make the building usable, but it could become a platform for job training and even a green business incubator. So it would bring a much needed economic boost to our community. And it would repurpose the building in a very positive way, we feel. So a year and a half ago or so, the board signed a letter of intent with our group, allowing us to proceed with some planning, but unfortunately, COVID put an end to all that, and we lost some of our business partners. So right now, we would like to be able to pursue this new carbon neutral economic development grant that the state has, which is incredibly well targeted towards this type of project. So we can go over that fact sheet if you have any questions, but really the timing right now couldn't be better, and it couldn't be worse. I mean, in terms of being bad timing, we have a very tight turnaround to meet a July 30th deadline. And the good news is that the availability of this funding indicates that there's momentum for these types of projects that model sustainable economic development. So that said, if you have any questions about the grant specifics, Ed and I can help you to understand that better. But what we would like to understand ourselves is, has the school district made any plans for that building yet that we may not be aware of? And have there been any decisions made about the use of that building that would preclude us from being able to go ahead with this project? So, is there anything that we need to know before we sink our teeth into more of this work?
I think one thing, Olga, first of all, it's Anne. I'm having a little technical difficulty, so you can't see me right now, but hopefully shortly here. But I think, first of all, I thank you and Ed for coming to our meeting, and thank you for the documentation that you sent us ahead of time. I'm sure that Dr. Sheboy has met with you and discussed with you what if there are any regulations in place as it pertains to that the building is owned by right now, the whatever the rules and regs are as it's associated to the SED, the State Education Department. But other than that, we do have some feelers out that are willing to, that are, that are back now, like you say, after COVID, that have showed some interest, but we right now do not have any agreement signed or anything like that in place. Absolutely not.
Okay.
So Frank, I don't know if I said that all correctly, if you want to add anything or.
You said it absolutely perfectly, and I would just say that there's nothing that I'm aware of through SED building codes that would preclude upgrade to a facility to make it, energy neutral, passive energy. That I'm not aware of anything in SED guidelines. Obviously, SED being an educational authority likes to do things that would be beneficial to the state. So through both the education as well as through buildings. And I know that there's all sorts of energy studies that are done in schools and solar put on solar panels. So SED is generally supportive of those things as long as it meets building codes that are established by SED.
No, well, this project incentivizes everybody to exceed those basic codes. And the school districts are eligible to apply. So I would say that means that, there wouldn't be any restrictions on that. So really the question, as I said, in the fact sheet, there's some key considerations, who would be the applicant? Would the school district be the applicant, given that you own the property, and would enter into some kind of an agreement with a third party to provide the technical content? So that's an avenue that we could pursue. There have to be decisions made relative to this grant, whether we would be doing rehab, which is what we would like to do, versus new construction, meaning tearing down the building and starting from scratch. Decisions will have to be made about the proposed use of the building. Those kinds of things need to be stated in the grant application. So would you want to have students go back in there? Would you be open to some other job training type of initiative, or some even mixed use type of thing? And for the purposes of the application, we really need to define what they're calling a marketing plan, because the way NYSERDA views this, the whole project would become a model, a showcase for other entities that would be looking to do similar kinds of buildings. So that really, I think, is unique about this project, that it would not only reuse the building, but it would become a real showcase, a real focal point for others in the state. You could invite people to come in and actually, look at the building, do tours, do meetings, conferences, things like that. So those decisions really need to be made. And I think, Ed and I can't make those decisions. Those would have to come from the school district. And we would be happy and willing to discuss options with you, but we do need to kind of focus on the timeline here, because July 30th will be upon us before we know it. So, regardless of that, let me just finish up here. What we would like is to renew that commitment that the school district made with us in the past. In other words, maybe update the letter of intent and allow us to proceed with this planning, because I really think that kind of tangible indication of support is going to be important for us, because one of the things that we're doing is really looking for a business partner for this. We want to take this from being a volunteer-led endeavor, which is because Ed and I are just volunteers at this point, to where it becomes a viable business entity. I think that's going to be important to establish for the purposes of the project long-term, and managing the finished product even longer term. So, that's kind of what we need. We need to understand to what extent, you could commit to spending time on this and are willing to re-up with that letter of intent that we had in the past.
Yeah. So Frank, my concern is, to be flat out honest, we have no Tom right now. He retired. We're bringing someone new in. They have to get up to speed on the buildings themselves. Not anything else. We have important, and I don't know how we're going to do this. The people that we would need, they're either retiring or, because we only really have, at the end of the day, 30 days. So I'm not sure. I don't want to commit to something that we can't handle. I mean, we're going to need our business official, our superintendent, we're going to need that person. We're going to need Andrea. We're going to need Mike, who are busy transitioning. We're going to need Tom's replacement. These are all key players in getting this done in 30 days. And I'm not sure right now that we can commit to that. I don't see how you can, quite frankly. I don't know what your take on it is.
Yeah, we are very much, Olga and I have discussed the challenge of the timeline, and
Yeah.
I don't know that we will meet an application for this grant cycle. The one thing that is comforting is, as I think Olga alluded to, this is something that seems to be gaining steam throughout the state as far as these grants. And I think Olga had done some research, and Olga, please correct me if I misspeak, that there have been similar iterations of this in the past. So it would be reasonable to imagine, without guarantees, of course, that there will be future iterations that may not look exactly the same, but have the same general focus and goals.
Yeah, without a doubt, the interest is only going to increase, and there's numerous energy-related grant opportunities out there in addition to this one. This one happens to be very highly targeted to match this project's objectives. But there's other grant monies, and there's potential for other financing sources, which we are also looking at. So I perfectly understand the time crunch here, and I think we're willing to keep this going and be much readier for the next time around. So again, I think in order for us, for Ed, myself, and our committee to be successful in creating this viable third-party business entity, we really need some kind of a commitment in writing from the school district. So that's really something that we would ask for, and we can try to we'll work with you on developing the right vehicle for that.
So Olga,
and I think the important thing, Olga, you said it, is if the board is willing to get back, reinitiate, for lack of a better word, the agreement.
Yeah.
That's something that a lot of the things that are the requirements, once we get people back and in their positions and up and running, I think a lot of those requirements are going to be very similar, regardless of what the end of the application is going to look like. The homework still needs to be done, and we can be a little proactive in that if it's something that the board and the district is interested in. So I think that's key. How does that work, Dr. Sheboy? We asked the board, they would make a motion to get him to reinitiate the agreement. And I know I'm not using the right terminology.
Re-engage is really what we're talking about.
Re-engage, yeah.
So what I would do is I would work with Margot just to revise it, because obviously, that had different signatories on it,
Okay.
who aren't in play. Yeah, and then if the board wanted to have, a resolution, remember the nice thing about the previous one is what it did is it allowed the consortium, and for lack of a better term, consortium, to try to case funding so this could be done, because some of the concerns that Olga and I had discussed previously were that it is matching funds, right? So it's not 1-for-1 matching, but I think it's 3/4, so 75%, so it's 25% matching, right, Olga, from local sources. And what is the origin, or what is the source of those funds, and can we find other sources? And a level of commitment by the board, if the board authorizes that, and I think I'm at the point of concluding that we're not going to hit this grant cycle, but that commitment would allow for some preliminary fund chasing, if that's a new word I just made up, but for this project, in the event that grant cycle opens up again, then Olga and that the new re-engaged consortium could, maybe the matching funds would already be in place. So, Olga, am I misspeaking?
By this time next year, yeah. Well, I haven't mentioned, because I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I'm working, I'm taking a course with Pattern for Progress, specifically oriented around this project. And next week, I am going to be in the Shark Tank with a bunch of investors who are going to be hearing about the potential for this project. So I'm really, really, really hoping that that will open up some interest from potential business partners and potential investors. So I really feel like once we have this commitment in place, that we'll be able to proceed and form this new consortium to do this project.
I have a couple of questions for Olga and Ed. By the way, on the screen it says unknown for Mr. Ed Nugent. For those who are wondering who fits the unknown, it's Mr. Ed Nugent, who's been part of the community for many years. Would you need to know the use that the building ultimately would be made ready for in order to proceed with the application?
For the application, yes. Because we have to describe the planned use of the building in the application. But I suppose there, if we languaged it like a mixed use type of thing and threw in some examples, that might be sufficient. But I'm not sure. I would follow up, if we're going to do this, with meeting with the administrator of the grant to ask some very, very specific questions like that.
Ed,
Yeah.
what
Hi, I'm Ed Nugent.
type of construction? Yeah, what type of construction do you envision with regard to both the interior and the exterior that would meet with your ultimate
My specialty
goals?
is passive house building, which if everybody is not familiar with it, it's cutting about 90% of the heating and cooling out of buildings. It's been around Europe for quite a while now, and I'm one of the founding board members of the Passive House Alliance, Hudson Valley. And I envision a new, make it very simple, a nice warm winter jacket on that building, all the way down to the bottom of the footings. A nice interior jacket around the exterior walls. A roof that has probably like an R100 insulation factor on it. Then dedicated ventilation systems now. And the technology they have now is just amazing. What they're doing with the ventilation, as far as after COVID, what's come out already, as far as the HEPA filters and the other type of filters and the ultraviolet light and stuff that goes into the ventilation systems. A very, very healthy, comfortable building. The interior of the building, that's open. It's a rectangle. It has a gymnasium that could stay. I envisioned it. We needed in our area a place to teach green building techniques. And putting a mock-up little building in that gymnasium and having groups come in to look and see how it's actually done hands-on would be just amazing. There's nothing like it around. I'm sure that you have classrooms in the building and other things. Maybe solar companies want to come in and teach people how to install solar systems and what they're all about. I think the green job market is going to be growing exponentially. And there is no real training for this stuff out there, at least in our area. So that's kind of my envision. I don't think the building needs all that glass. You've got an incredible roof there that's open to solar arrays, or the parking lot with solar arrays. It's just got a lot of potential. And doing an energy retrofit on a building, if the building has simple geometry, like a rectangle or what it is, pretty easy to do. If it's complicated with a lot of breaks and a lot of angles and stuff, it gets a lot more difficult. That one's like a no-brainer to me of making that an energy efficient building. And we also watch the materials we put in the building. If you listen to Olga before talk about the two ends of it, would be net zero energy and net zero carbon. Any materials you put in there would have no global warming potential and no carbon. So you'd be using cellulotic type of materials, cellulose type of insulations that would sequester carbon in the material itself. That's how you get to net zero carbon. If anybody wants me to glaze them out someday, you can give me a call and I can spend about a half hour with you and make your eyes glaze over. There is a website we use with a lot of really useful information on it. It's called number 4, number 7, number 5, building products. They have videos and all kinds of stuff at your leisure you can look at and see what's going on around the country. An example of a passive house is the Cornell University Tech Towers on Roosevelt Island, New York City. That's the biggest passive house in the world right now. That got to the passive house standards. So I mean, a lot of this stuff is it's not dream stuff. It's doable. The amount of money you save on the energy going forward in these buildings is incredible. Heating and cooling, the technology is changing so quickly that if you don't keep up on it and read about it every week or every 2 weeks, in 3 weeks, a month time, you're behind the 8 ball already. There's new manufacturers that are ramping up all electrification of buildings. They're doing all different things with heat pumps. So it's just.
Well, Ed, that's very detailed, very interesting. Thank you for sharing. What I think we need to do is, we will definitely discuss this as a board and then work with our attorney. If everyone's fine with it, we'll work with our attorney to reinstate the agreement so we can, each start taking our tasks and move forward. So we'll have a discussion with the board, I guess, Frank, in the very near future, or even tonight if we need to, and then we can get permission and you'll get back to Olga.
Absolutely. And
That would be great.
yeah, I'll reach out and I'll find the agreement, see what revisions we need to make, and then we'll bring it to the board for discussion and action in the future. We have a business meeting subsequent to the reorg meeting on the 8th.
Okay. All right. That's great. Great. Thank you both so much. Thank you so much for taking
Thank
the
you.
time.
Really appreciate it. And follow up with any questions. We're available to discuss. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
And
Thank
Olga
you.
and Ed, if anybody has anything that they would like to have shared with the board, they could just send them to Marissa. If there's any links or anything, and Marissa can make sure that the board gets it.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Bye now.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Everybody, nice speaking to you.
Nice meeting you. Thank you. Okay. Are there any board comments? I personally would like to welcome and congratulate Olivia and JC for their appointments to, and I thank you so much for being willing to come to our district and teach our phenomenal children and be part of our family. JC is a new elementary teacher and Olivia is a special education biology teacher. So we're very lucky to have them on board. Would either of you like to make a comment? Olivia, I think he's handing it off to you first.
Thank you so much. I'm, really looking forward to getting started in the fall. Excellent school district. I'm excited, and thank you so much for the warm welcome.
Well, we're excited to have you, so thank you.
Thank you.
JC?
Yeah, I'm very excited and appreciative of the warm welcome and all the smiling faces, the waves. It makes joining this district that much more special, and just really excited to get going in the fall.
We're looking forward to it. So thank you and welcome. So also, Dr. Sheboy, oh wait, oh no, we're not. You're the only one having updates today. So I'm going to turn it over to you as long as after I ask for any other board comments. But I wanted to know, would you be mentioning graduation and the format to the board? Did you hear back any information on that as it comes to? I know normally that there's handshakes and diplomas and all that, and we weren't sure how that was going to change this year. And I think it's important for the board and the community to understand that. And the one thing that I wanted to let the board and the public know is that the amount of effort is just absolutely amazing to me that our district, our administrators have put in to make graduation what it's going to be at all levels, the 8th grade moving up at the high school, rising stars, moving forward, all the things that that are being done, and at the same time keeping our students and our faculty safe. It's just, I'm not sure that there's any other district in Orange County that's doing this way. Indoor graduation, allowing for 4 and 2 parents. I don't know, Dr. Sheboy, if you want to add to that. Is there any others? Are there any others?
I don't think anybody's doing it as close to traditional, and I have to, as close to traditional as possible as we're going to attempt to do.
Okay.
Our seniors, we're sequestering them. Hopefully they'll stay in their own bubbles and be safe and not have an exposure. They definitely won't have an exposure due to O'Neill. So we're just really, we're trying. Last year we recognized as a challenge for everybody, and our goal, we played sports. We have 3 section champions. We're getting there. And I could speak briefly about a couple things regarding moving up and commencement. So just so the board is aware, normally the board for moving up for 8th grade would be there, and the admin and guidance team at HFIS would be the ones who hand out certificates, and normally we would shake hands. We won't be able to do that at the intermediate school. I apologize for that, but obviously we need to limit that personal level of contact. In regards to O'Neill, board members, we're going to work out a situation certainly where board members who have a child graduating will be able to present their child their diploma as has been in the past. It's important that we carry that on as a tradition. I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into being a board member that is unpaid, and this work that board members give to the entire community certainly warrants their being able to hand a diploma and smile for a photo for their child's graduation. So we're looking forward to continuing that. As far as the normal rotation of board members, we're still working out logistics on that, and I'll get more information to the board. It won't look quite the same. but we'll try to do something to keep it as normal as possible. So.
But I think we all understand that the goal is to keep everybody safe. For students, some of them are going to be turning around and going right to college, to summer school, to wherever they're going.
Yeah,
Yep. So we totally understand. As a board, I just thank the administration again for putting together what they've put together so far. Yes, things will look different, but they won't look as different as they did last year. So that's all we can ask for. So thank you.
When are we going to know what it will look like? Not
well,
what it won't look.
Well, Ned, I mean, it's going to look like a normal graduation. The question is, are board members going to come up in a rotation for every graduate? I don't know the answer to that, and I'll work with Debbie and Robin on it. We should have an answer for you certainly by the end of next week. But our goal is to limit contact with people who aren't from the same household. That's as per the guidance from the Department of Health. Not something I want to do. I'd love to have everybody hug everybody, but it's not going to happen this year. So, yeah. I just had two other things, Ann, if I could briefly make comments on.
Please.
So one is I just want to thank the entire community for their understanding during the last weekend's mask confusion event that was caused by the state, not caused by us. When Commissioner Zucker put out his little press release that said they were asking the CDC for permission to end mask wearing in school, that caused a fair amount of challenge at every level, in households, in communities, in schools. My email box was filled with people saying, so I'm not sending my kid to school with a mask on Monday. And my response is, yes, you are, because there's been no change. And then to have New York State Education Department send out contradictory information, and then to have the outside mask mandate lifted Monday night, I think it was, during the midst of a heat wave. So I thank the community. I thank our faculty. I thank our staff. I thank our children for their understanding through that period of mask confusion that the state created. I also want to thank the board for their unwavering support as we work through it locally here. The second thing is I want to thank people for their support regarding our decisions with the health of our kids during the early part of the week for heat. As everybody knows, we had 5 consecutive days where we had temperatures that were extraordinarily high for this time of year. Saturday and Sunday were both in the mid-90s around here. Monday, but the forecast was for mid-90s, and I made the decision, for the sake of emergency for our children, that we would shift to a virtual only synchronous day. That is my prerogative as the superintendent of schools. Looking out at the weather for the subsequent couple days, we were looking at weather in the mid-80s, and I made the decision that we would be in. Was it hot? Absolutely. It was hot on Tuesday. It was hot on Wednesday. It was much hotter in our buildings on Monday because the buildings had been closed over the weekend. So I stand by that decision. I received a couple emails saying I was crazy for going to remote and kids should just not have to wear their mask, which I can't make that decision, or they should just drink lots of water. And I had people who said I should have closed or gone remote every day this week. So I can't win, but I operate 100% with health and safety as my foremost. So I thank everybody for their understanding. I think that heat wave is over. It was a nice day today. Still warm in some of the buildings. Takes a while for brick to cool down, but I thank everybody. And as we continue to move forward, we'll still make the decisions that are in the best interest of the health and safety of our children, our faculty, and our staff. So I just thank the board for their support on that as well.
And what I want to add about that too is that I'm so glad that we can switch to remote now if we need to. While it does make it very difficult for our parents, and we totally understand that, our kids didn't lose a day of education. Now, it just so happens, again, totally out of our control, and I'm going on record to say it, Google Classroom and a lot of the Google functions were offline, online, offline, all sorts of problems were had with that, totally out of our control. Again, I just want to make sure everybody gets that. If you look on the internet, it'll tell you it was down through a lot of the Northeast. So that we cannot control, but we can control the health and safety of our children.
Yeah,
and we will continue to do so.
There was a hack, and again, the decision that we made was communicated Friday afternoon at about 5 p.m. I would rather make the decision that we made and give families the opportunity to take care of the needs of their children, supervisory and otherwise, the health and safety, than some of our colleagues in our neighboring districts, which made a decision at around 10:30 that they were going to send kids home at noon, and then families had to scramble. They had no warning.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I'll take the hit for what we did. I still think it was the right decision. So
thank you for doing what you've done, Frank.
Yeah, thanks, Dad.
Thanks, Dad. I kind of would like to just make sure there are no other board members that wanted to make a comment before we go into the consent agenda. Okay. And Denise, do you want to do it or do you want me to?
I have it, Ann.
Thank you.
Okay. Use of the consent agenda permits the Board of Education to make more effective use of its time by adopting a single motion to cover those relatively routine matters which are included. Any member of the board who wishes to discuss individually a particular piece of business on the consent agenda may so indicate, and that item will be considered and voted on separately, thus preserving the right of all board members to be heard on any issue. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following consent agenda as submitted by the superintendents of schools, number 2 to 15.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Does anyone have any questions on 2 to 15?
I have just a comment.
Okay.
Items 4, HVAC bid award, and 5, although backup material for the cost and the information is available, and practice to reference the amount and the other information in the resolution so that it's easier for the public to know that information.
Frank, I didn't get all that, so can you
Yeah, I think
paraphrase?
I think Ned was just saying that it would be better for that type of information because it was a bid and it's open, that it be made as public as opposed to an executive document. We can continue. We can do that. We can look into that.
We'll look into that. Okay.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay. Okay. So I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. And before we move on, we do need to speak about the need for an additional meeting. So, Dr. Sheboy, can you explain the need for the meeting and when you suggest that we have it?
Yeah, so I anticipate over the next couple, within it, but certainly before June 30th, a couple change orders coming that we need in order to wrap up the project. Their electric change orders again. We're waiting for the documentation to come in, but if we don't have that done, we won't be able to submit the FCR by June 30th. So that's imperative that we have a meeting for that. In addition, there's a couple of things, the least of which is an executive session to finalize the evaluation of the superintendent, and that's always nice to do that. So we do need to have a meeting where some business, as well as an executive session, a proposed executive session would be held. I don't think that it's realistic, and I'll ask Denise for her intervention, and if I'm wrong, she can tell me that I'm wrong, but I don't believe that we can have what we need by next Thursday.
As of this evening, I still have not received the information. I have submitted to BCA that I would need information by the 16th, which is Wednesday. I'm actually waiting for information so we could do a read ahead for the board so that if we get the information by the 16th. But Scott and Katrina have not responded back to my deadline of Wednesday, June 16th.
So
boy.
if we,
This is going to be hard because the next week is like, the only day the next week we could do it then would be the 21st.
Yeah.
Because the 22nd is intermediate school. The 23rd is high school. You leave on the 24th?
yes,
Yeah. So the 21st is it. Or
Yes.
Friday the 18th, and that one's hard for me, but I'm only one person.
if we wouldn't, I mean, if we're not going to have it by the 17th, my guess, and Denise will correct me, we won't be ready by the 18th.
No, we won't be.
21st
Okay,
is
so
pushing it, but we have to push Scott to get these final things to us. And because we don't want to miss it because of that.
we can't miss it. So what about the 21st? Can I have a show of hands? Who's available on the 21st to do a little bit of business and then the superintendent's evaluation? You're not available, Jimmy?
It's a village board meeting that night.
Okay. Okay, Gabe?
What day of the week is that, the 21st?
Yeah,
It's
Monday. All right, Gus, you're available? Aaron?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, Faith? Okay, there's 3. Ned?
I believe so, but I'm not positive.
When could you let us know?
Probably tomorrow.
And Marissa has a hand up. I'm not sure if it's a new hand or an old hand.
Go ahead,
I'll do my
Marissa.
best.
No, I'm just
to be
reading it to
available.
say I'm available. That's all. My camera's broken, but I'm available.
Okay, you're available. Okay, Jim? Oh, Jim is not. Gabe? Okay. Cecil?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Okay, thank you. So, with all due respect, Jimmy, we might need to go on without you. If you could just get the evaluation done, if you haven't already before then. Will that work?
Yeah, no, that's
Okay.
fine.
Okay, because that's the only day we can do it before the 30th. I mean, because if you start getting into that last week, we don't have Denise, there's people we don't have.
Yeah, because we have to pay these apps too. It's not just having they have to be paid. Right, Denise?
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I won't have Faith to keep me in line on making sure my comments are good for the eval, but I'll try my best.
Okay. Okay, so let's shoot for that. Let's post it for that.
And what time? 6?
6 o'clock.
Okay.
Is that what we're saying?
I will send out the invite. 6 o'clock.
I could, if it's going to be at 6, I could probably, come on for maybe 45 minutes.
Okay, because it would, yeah, and then we can get a good part of it done. And I'm sure the business will not take that long, especially if we get the change orders ahead of time. Okay, excellent. Excellent, excellent. Okay. Okay, well, thank you, everybody. Unless there's anything else, we can be it resolved that the Board of Education recesses into executive session for the purpose of discussing the employment history of a particular individual, to discuss collective negotiations under the Taylor Law with the Town of Highlands Teachers Association, and to seek advice of counsel.
So moved.
Second.
And the board will not be returning to open session to take action. I wanted to make sure I got that in there. I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. JC, Olivia, thank you again for joining us and congratulations. Stay well.
Thank you.